Here's the question. How do you make the impossible possible? Simple. Remove the I am, the ego. Now, how do you step into that newfound possibility? With a series of small intentional steps. Never forget, the greatest among us started from humble beginnings. But to truly unlock your potential, realize you're here for something greater. If you're yearning for more than just a good life, let's take that small step together to reach greatness. Welcome to the Greatness from Small Beginnings podcast, where we're talking to those who have gone from mediocrity to motivated, overlooked to overachieving, forgettable to unforgettable. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hello, everybody. This is Keith from the podcast Greatness from Small Beginnings. You know that. You're tuning in. I appreciate it. But hello, and thank you for tuning in. Oh, look at that. I can see myself in the camera. Hair sticking up. You know, it's hard to be perfect, that's for sure. It's funny because I just asked for a critical review of not a podcast, but a thing I did live for some people. And boy, the guy was, he's a friend, and he shared with me that it was not great, not my best work. And I spent some time on it. His last question was, how well did you prepare? And I think back, well, I should have prepared better. So hopefully these thoughts, since they've been ruminating for a while, are not thoughts that are a little, there's some of them are off the cuff for sure, but since they've been ruminating a while, the preparation is definitely there. So at church today, heard a great sermon basically talking about the responsibility we have as believers to be salt and to be light. And I thought, man, that is a deep, it's a wonderful subject. And what's interesting is it comes right after the Beatitudes, which is blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, and so on and so forth, and all the blesseds. And the last one is, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And so if you want the good things that God wants to give, there's some disciplines, some things you give up to be that and to do that. And so what made me think of this as the pastor was preaching is Matthew in the Bible, chapter 5, verse 13 and 14. You're the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing, but to be thrown out and trampled under the feet of men. And then it says, as another analogy, you are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they that light a lamp put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. But let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So it's not about us, it's about him. And he was talking to us as a congregation, a group of people, about, I heard this saying once from a friend of mine that said that we should have a sign near the door as we go out from the church that basically says, you are now entering a mission field. So he was talking about how this is not just go be salt, go add flavor, don't go be light. He was saying that there's an active representation, because often people won't taste the flavor that we give to the world, at least not as we're trying to portray it, and not see the light that we're trying to give to the world. They don't see it in some cases at all, because they're blind to some degree, and maybe we're not portraying it with the what's the brightness? That's not the word I was looking for, but the brightness with which we would want to present that. I thought that was a really good example. And then I got to thinking about a video I did, maybe 2 years ago. I don't know. It was spontaneous and it was driving me crazy. And I'm like, I know several people in the coffee industry, and baristas. My son actually owns a coffee shop in Indianapolis. And I asked him before I did that video, I said, so tell me about your Sunday morning traffic. What's it like? Well, the traffic before 9 a.m. is most of those people are headed to church. They're headed to, to wherever they're going for places of worship. They're headed to be with other people with similar beliefs as believers in Christ. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them. And I said, well, what's the atmosphere like? What's the conversations like? Are they full of joy? Are they a blessing? And he said, no, they're actually not. It seems like often when they're with either if they're by themselves, there's kind of I don't know, just like a down attitude a little bit, perhaps in some cases. And then if they're with others, they literally ignore the person at the window, which seemed kind of odd to me. And I said, well, what's the tipping like? He said, it is the worst 2 hours or so of the week. And I thought, that is sad. That's terrible. It should be the best because we should be generous people. If we have enough, whether we're young and it's our parents' money, or if we have enough and it's our money and God blessed us with that to stop and buy a $5 or $6 coffee, then we should tip at least $1 or $2, and perhaps even more generously because of where we're going in that moment. That fits right with that sign on the inside of the church as we leave. You are now entering the mission field. So if we can't be hilariously engaging and we can't do well in being generous, and generous not with uh, our words, our verbiage, that and then in turn with our dollars that God has provided for us, then maybe we just need to make our coffee at home. So the idea is to see it as a mission field and to go and be everything we should be in that moment. Be like the Beatitudes talk about. Be good, probably good right now to read those too. Blessed are the meek, for they inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be the sons of God. They shall be called the sons of God. Oh, it's about reputation. Wow. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And then it goes on to say, blessed are you when you are reviled and persecute, others revile and persecute you, and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake, is what he's saying. And rejoice exceedingly and be glad. All of that to say that we are supposed to give of ourselves, perhaps until it hurts. And I will tell you that many times I have not done that. I've been focused on myself, focused on perhaps after church when I go to lunch at a restaurant or that kind of thing. I don't actually consider tipping more than the average. Well, sometimes I think, what does the average mean to the world? If somehow I'm dressed up and it looks as though I've come from church, should I be better than average? Should I do more than average, even if they don't deserve it, which might actually be mercy? And if they do deserve a good tip, average plus, then maybe I do even more because that's grace, is giving them something that, deserve it or not, you're giving it out of free will. So that's my rant for the day, talking about how the world is lost. And when we enter out of our houses, out of our places of worship, out of church, then why don't we see the world as something that we can change? Why don't we see it as what we should go change? So that being said, I think that we often will share to some degree our politics, maybe in a backhanded way. something that's a little bit socially correct, maybe. Um, Even though we might not be completely on the same page with the other person, we say things and we kind of get our point across because we know how to do that without getting in a lot of trouble. And we can share the fact that we're patriotic by wearing red, white, and blue and not just around 4th of July, but other times also. But does being dogmatic about things that are not necessarily spiritual, but actually more fleshly, like politics, being dogmatic about those things, are those the things that can change the mindset of the world? Would it be better, perhaps, to have a dialogue that helps us understand the deeper concept of why do you stand where you are? I'm remembering a situation where I was talking to somebody I'm close to a number of years ago about this thing that they called it Pint Night. And it was a group from their church that would go to this local sports bar on, maybe it was Monday Night Football. I don't remember. But they would go weekly and they would take their friends from church. They would invite their various friends from other parts of their life. And the idea was that they would be around believers from their congregation, their church, and hopefully, in that case, engage in conversation. And I just didn't understand the concept of it at all. Now, I come from a couple of generations back where when you're in your 20s, you just didn't do that. You didn't go into bars. Sports bars are a new concept over the last 30 or 40 years. Um, and you just didn't go into bars. And you certainly didn't. If you did, if you're off on a business trip, if you did, you don't order anything to drink. That's just not the way it works because that could be a bad testimony. And what this person was saying, and they were in their 20s at the time, is that no, it's actually the opposite of that. It does create testimony and the issue of us drinking a pint of beer in front of these other people actually can build a bridge. And I've heard the same thing when it comes to tattoos and different things like that. That maybe they can bridge that those could bridge with others in the world and I think that in some ways that might be true. It could be a tool. For me, in regarding the alcohol, my wife's family all came from alcoholism and that kind of thing. So that's a hard no in our world. But we also came from a different generation where they see it completely differently. The freedom of doing that was a freedom to go sin and do bad things and become drunk and become that kind of life you didn't want to be, or waste, in essence, your family's money on stopping at the bar every day on the way home. That was the persona that went with that, and that's just not the way it is anymore. And yet there is a slippery slope for those that can get caught in it. And so still there's a challenge there of how we engage with the world. But so go back to the rant side of what I'm saying is that conversation actually was very enlightening to me. It helped me understand, and I want to do that more. But I will tell you that very few people will convince me that not tipping well to a barista on a Sunday morning, I don't see any justification for that. And that is not the way to greatness from small beginnings, for sure. Small beginnings being what in that case? Somehow you think you're better than them. And that is the time to be joyful and share generously and hilariously with others and to do it in a way that's engaging so that people know, yeah, I'm a believer in Jesus and I'm headed to church to go be with my people. And I am so happy that I'm being generous. I'm so happy that I'm basically sharing my joy with you in multiple different ways during the interaction. So there you go. There's my rant for the day. There's another pathway, another thing to think about as we think about greatness. We have to be thoughtful. For me, I need more conversations with people in different zones in different parts of my world to figure out how can you do pint night? I don't get it. And then expand my own mind in the process. Look forward to doing that together with you. on this podcast and in other possible ways. Thank you. And thank you for tuning in. Now I will finish up the way I always do. One of my favorite quotes from Zig Ziglar, and he had a lot of them. You were designed for accomplishment, engineered for success, and endowed with the seeds of greatness. Oh, we get to choose. Are the seeds planted? Are they nurtured? Oh, it's so good. Call to action is now go be great.